Afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome to the Sierra Vista City Council meeting for the 22nd of June, the work session. And I call the meeting to order. The first item on discussion tonight is item 2A, the 24th June council meeting agenda items. And as usual, we start with a call to order, a roll call, invocation, pledge, and acceptance of the agenda. And is there anything on the agenda itself that needs a rearranging, discussion, comments, et cetera?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. The next thing is the city manager's report. And as you probably noticed, the assistant city manager is here today because the city manager is out going on vacation, and he's going to two weddings, one in Florida and one in Indiana, in a period of less than 2 weeks. So he's going to be having one hell of a vacation. So is there anything on the upcoming city manager's report that you'd like to talk to us about today about?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have the report in front of me. It looks like most of these things were shared already, so I'll double check that before Thursday night. But the one I think everybody's probably the most interested in is the rebid of the North Garden Fry Boulevard improvements, Phase 1. Came back very good. We're very pleased. It has been awarded to KE&G, although the contract is still pending. So, very happy to report that.
Okay. Any questions for the city manager on the report right now? All right. Let's see. We next go to the consent agenda items. We have the approval of the two special city council meeting minutes for the 8th, 7th, and 8th, where we're discussing our appointments. Any comments, questions, discussion on those two items?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then we have the regular city council meeting minutes for June 10. Any additions, corrections, completions, discussion on those minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll go on to item 2.4, which is the approval of pre-annexation agreement with the Veritas Christian School. Everybody, I hope, has a chance to read that, had a chance to read that. It's basically, they're taking over a building that used to be, was it pet store or grain store?
Feed store.
Feed
yes.
store. And it's in the county.
Business for a week.
They want to annex it into the city so they can they can go to the sewer, because obviously the sewer requirements for a feed store and a school a little bit different. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. We next go to a public hearing item. Item number 3, amendment to City Code 33, city departments, and declaring a 30-day public record. Ms. Yarborough, would you cover that item for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So this is really a housekeeping item. There's been a number of changes to departments over the years, administrative changes. The most notable one that I can point out is this ordinance this code still had the Department of Parks and Leisure and the Department of Library Services listed. So with multiple administrative changes over the past few years, we realized this chapter needed to be updated. So these changes just generalize the scope of services that each department offers. So we shouldn't need to really come back for any future changes. So this is just cleaning it up. It places it on 30-day public comment, so you'll see it again in about a month.
And basically, it reflects what we're actually doing right now today, rather than what we were doing when it was originally approved.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any other questions, discussion on that item?
No.
So we're cleaning house there, that's good. Under new business, item number 4 is the declaration of intent to increase sewer connection fees. And remember, this is connection fees when people first come on the sewer system. Mr. Felix.
Mayor, members of council, back in 2009, we did a review of the sewer connection fees. That was done as the tribute plant was being looked at of a package plant or expanding the current plant. We have reviewed them. We've not changed the fees from that time coming forward. There is the expansion of the plant or package plant is programmed into those fees, and the cost estimate at that time was $10 million. Given the changes in construction costs we've received recently, obviously we do need to make adjustments for construction fees for that plant and for any of the repairs replacement related to the connection fees. The basis of connection fees is established under Section 9500 of the Arizona Revised Statute. They're very specific on the steps we must take to raise any fee rate charge within the sewer wastewater operations, and this is the first step to do that. There's no reason to review any of the other fees in the system right now. The system is operating fine. This is just to bring the construction costs back into line. This also buys capacity in the current plant and system that we do have. Remind you that the fund is currently $1.3 million cash negative, and that is for the interceptors that we have constructed over time. The one out by the school district, the one going south for the tribute area, the expansion to the plant to handle new capacity, all contributed to the negative cash balance. As people connect, this sewer fund will then become cash positive. We do want to have cash in the fund so that when it comes time to expand the plant, we can get started on it. As Ms. Flassar is very well aware, having worked with ADEQ, if we hit a point of capacity at the current plant, we must immediately start construction or expansion of the plant and start going through the steps to do it. So it would be best to have the ability and the cash in hand to do this. So we're simply trying to adjust those original costs from 2009 back to the present. It is based off the Phoenix Construction Cost Index over this time, but obviously raising it a large amount in 1 year is not beneficial to either the city or the developers. So we're proposing phasing this in over 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, we'll review where the fees are and what has happened to the construction industry between now and then, raise rates again, hold them off for a while, but this will just give a 3-year kind of tier into where we should be right now. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Mr. Felix?
Well, I just have a comment based on the fact that we haven't done anything with these fees in over 12 years, and we've got to keep that enterprise fund solvent, with new people coming on. I was a little concerned about the 20% per year, but I think you've alleviated some of my concerns, David. Thank you.
Anybody else? Good comments? All right. Thank you, David. Again, this is for 30-day review period, so we get public comment.
Correct.
Okay.
And at the hearing, at the actual meeting, which will be the second meeting in August, people can speak at that meeting as well, and you can raise the fees up to, but not over, the proposed amount. You can raise them less if you want, or not at all, but you couldn't change it to say a 30% raise. We're saying 20%, that's the maximum you could raise it for.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Felix. We now go on to item number 5, tentative budget for fiscal year. Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So this item will set your tentative budget for fiscal year 21-22 at $115,711,558. So according to Arizona Revised Statutes, your final budget amount can be less than or equal to the cap you set with the tentative budget, but it cannot go over. Things can move around within that budget, but not exceed that cap. That is relatively rare that we would move things around between now and the final budget. So there are 2 minor changes that I wanted to point out to you, and my apologies. There were a lot of details in this budget this year, and so 2 things that were not included in your presentation last Monday. We realized that since we hadn't done the Spotlight Breakfast last year, that we did not budget a small amount for the supplies, so that $1,500 was added. And then if you recall, in May, there was an agenda item before council regarding the easement for the electrical meter at the Veterans Park Sports Complex. So $26,000, we are carrying that over to install that meter for the complex. There's one special note that I want to point out that was added specifically to the resolution. So I attended the school board meeting last week to present our proposal to purchase the land adjacent to Roadrunner Park for $366,000. The school board listened to the presentation, and they are going to schedule another meeting to discuss it, and then another meeting to vote on it. So we still have a little bit of time to wait before we hear of their decision. However, when we have purchased land over the past couple of years, the title company has requested resolutions specific to approving that purchase. And so we've added a special note in the resolution regarding the potential purchase of this land, should the governing board, should the city council approve it. So we have that note in there for the title company should that go through. So that is the reason why that note is specifically in there.
But the amount, whether it's spent or not, is in the budget.
It is in the budget, Mr. Mayor. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from Ms. Yarborough on the budget? I guess all this does is really gonna set the cap, it resets the cap.
That's
When
correct,
we
Mr.
vote
Mayor.
on Okay. And the future budget votes, when do we do the final budget and set the property tax rate?
July 22nd is your vote to approve the final budget and the public hearing on property tax, and August 12th is your adoption of the property tax levy.
Okay, and there's no proposal for increase in property taxes, just so, in case somebody's out there listening and may get worried about it. Anything else from Ms. Yarborough on this item?
I just had one quick question. Now, we typically look at this budget every 6 months, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Johnson will have
You know, based on the squirrely nature of grants and what the federal government is doing, I would suggest that maybe we do it quarterly. I don't know if that's too much
Well,
of a burden on staff or,
Well, I'm gonna tell you that, staff is very, wary of, things that we're getting from the state and the grants, and they do a very good job, and as those things change, they do a good job of reporting back to us. And so I don't really see a need other than the 6 months. I know the federal thing is squirrely, especially when the federal government is already talking about clawbacks. That's a new term where they would take some money that was already granted to us, okay? And we're talking primarily the COVID money.
okay?
And occasionally, we do get a report where there's a project that we've done where we had money. Well, obviously, if we get a grant, and if we apply for a grant, it's in the budget, we don't get the money, we don't spend it, obviously. But occasionally, there's adjustments to that. And if it's below $10,000, the city manager can handle it by themselves. But if it's above $10,000, it comes back to us automatically
Okay.
on a budget resolution. So if there's something in between the 6 months that is unusual, that's over $10,000,
We'll find it.
we'll vote on it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
If it's under $10,000, we've already authorized the city manager to make the adjustments
Okay.
without having to bring it back to council.
All right.
So I think that meets kind of your concerns,
Okay, thank you, Mr.
I
Mayor.
hope.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does.
And Mr. Mayor, Mr. Johnson, we'll be happy to note, especially in, as the mayor mentioned, the executive report, we would certainly be reporting on any major grants we received and the status
Or
of projects
changes,
and so
yeah,
on.
okay.
And changes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Yarborough?
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Item number 6, RV Park Overlay District. And that is Mr. McLaughlin.
Hi, good afternoon. So we're at the adoption stage on this item, having held 2 public hearings and a 30-day review. Just to recap, staff is proposing a new overlay that would allow large manufactured home parks to increase the number of spaces set aside for RV use beyond the 30% cap that's currently in place, to provide flexibility to respond to changes in the market. You'll recall in our background presentations that several of the manufactured home parks on the West End are under new ownership and are in the process of being cleared out and rehabilitated, leaving rows of empty idle spaces. And providing a pathway for expanded RV use can help bridge the gap and make the properties more economically productive. Staff finds that manufactured home parks that are 10 acres in size or greater with appropriate buffering and centralized management can be adapted into appropriate locations for recreational vehicle parks on a primary, secondary basis with additional requirements being met. Public comments that were received are included in our memo. You heard from and have a letter from Good Living Ventures in support of the ordinance, and a statement in favor from Frio Girl 78. A resident who lives next to Garden Canyon Manufactured Home Park seems to indicate support of the RV overlay, but raises concerns regarding historical issues within the park itself pertaining to fire, storm damage, and flooding. I did relay these concerns to Good Living, and they indicated that their cleanup efforts will lead to less vacant units and fuel for arsonists, and by necessity, infrastructure improvements will be included with the more major renovation of Garden Canyon. I would also note that the overlay is not automatic entitlement. A property owner would still need to go through the rezoning process to receive this designation, which involves holding a neighborhood meeting, as well as a public hearing with property owner notifications and approval by council. By code, staff's evaluation includes an examination of appropriate public services and utilities. Mike Myers supports the proposal but would like a time limit added. We do not have the staff resources to monitor and enforce length of stay provisions. I would also note that the conventional recreational vehicle park district in the code does not impose a time limit. The intent is to provide for short-term occupancy, which is typically the case with RV living. We're more tuned into whether the properties are being maintained and quality standards are being met. There also appears to be continued confusion about the differences between manufactured home parks and subdivisions by a resident outside the city limits. In simple terms, parks are rental and more transient, like an apartment community, and subdivisions are owner-occupied and more permanent and stable in nature, like a residential neighborhood. Moreover, parks are on large buffered property with centralized management and amenities, whereas subdivisions have platted lots with site-built or manufactured homes with front and backyards that are privately owned. This character distinction is reflected in the regulations. Staff is recommending adoption of the amendments as provided in Resolution 2131, which has been supported by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. McLaughlin? Yes, ma'am.
You kind of mentioned it, the person who contacted us about the fire hydrant issue. So it sounds like you already spoke to Good Living Ventures, and they plan to, are they going to install another one closer? It's not like, is it an issue still? I don't know. Do they need another one?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Humphrey. Yeah, the response from Good Living is this is the last park that they're going to be working on, and they will make the necessary infrastructure improvements.
Is it necessary?
Well,
Brian's shaking his
yeah, so
Well, first
it
and
would be
foremost,
ideal, it would be ideal
Okay.
to boost the water service there and have an additional hydrant. But it's manageable in its current state. But, you know, that's something we would evaluate should they petition the city for this zoning overlay relative to the change in use
Oh,
for
alright.
that property.
Okay.
I'm just going to make a comment. One of the problems we've had on the west side is it's an older system.
That's right.
We're talking about water pressure,
Right.
a lot of leaks. And anytime we can get a developer to go in and fix their portion of the line, or the water company to go in and fix their portion of the line, the better off we're going to be. And that's all part of the gargantuan effort Mr. McLaughlin and his team have made over the past, I'm going to say 10, 12 years to clean up the west side, because it wasn't just the stuff you could see in the junky trailers. It was the infrastructure that supports that as well. So we're getting to a point now where we've actually cleaned out enough of that where we're attracting investors to put other monies into improving the area. So I think that's a great thing. And Mr. McLaughlin, Fire Chief, you've done a good job on doing that.
Would we, if it was necessary in the future, would we be responsible for installing the, I don't know how.
It's the fire, and that's one of the challenges we meet. You would think in many cities, the entire water company is owned by the city. We do not own a water company.
Right.
So each area that has a water company is responsible for maintaining and operating the fire lines and the pressure and all the other stuff.
So it'd be between the water company and Good Living.
Well, and the fire marshal to go out, who goes out and inspects and makes sure that they have the right flow and that they can actually open the hydrants and those kind of things on a regular basis.
Okay.
So we do an inspection monitoring type thing. Am I off base there, Chief?
Well, that's very good, yes. We do concurrency review and look at the ability of services and infrastructure to support the proposed development. In this case, it's a little tricky because, it was grandfathered as a manufactured home park. So absent a change in use, we're limited in what we can compel them to do.
And that's one of the challenges we have with areas that have been annexed in from the county. They were established and built in the county. They come to the city with in many cases, has a higher standard, whether it's building or fire codes or whatever. And they're grandfathered in, and we have to persuade the new owners to upgrade, or we offer incentives like we're doing on the West End for ADA, fire suppression, all the other things we're doing to offer additional loan money for the West End. So
All right.
that's kind of why we do that.
Okay. Thank you.
It's not just to make our city look good.
Yeah. No.
Make it safe and viable. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. McLaughlin? No. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your presentation. We next go to the council executive report. And who wants to start with questions on the executive report? I know the assistant city manager just waiting to tackle them.
Well,
Yes, ma'am, you go first.
I do want to ask Victoria, because I'm super excited that we had, is Angelica on the phone?
I don't believe so.
No.
Oh,
Okay, she's not in the shoot.
about Fry Boulevard. And so which items weren't, it said most items removed were added back in. So what's most?
Thank you, Councilmember Humphrey. The only items that were ended up not in the final award were the pylon signs. They were just very expensive, and staff decided that it would be a better idea to pull those out of the project and possibly develop something else down the road that was more artistically representative, or something, a better representation of what our original idea was for that part of the project. So those are out and everything else is in.
I'm not mad. That's amazing. Okay, that's good news. And if I can just ask another one of Tony. I had some.
Come on up, Mr.
I have his
Brown.
name on something here. There was, and maybe I'm just confusing two different projects. The excess material we're moving, that we got permission to move the Fort Huachuca side at the airport, is that the mound of dirt that was originally like, we were gonna try to budget 200 and it was 150, but it's like, what is it?
125.
1.3.
Yeah, so that's the dirt, to move the dirt.
Yeah, Councilperson Humphrey, yes. Yeah, the excess material that is on the
That's-
13 acres of undeveloped municipal property. So the negotiation with the fort was to move it to the fort side so that we could retain the material for future projects for both the fort and the city.
Okay,
We also intended that it would reduce the cost. As it stands, they're still charging roughly $5 a cubic yard to move any material. So that's where you get to the 1.3.
Okay.
So, and again, we haven't put that out to bid yet, so that is just the architect's cost estimate.
all right. Yeah, I just wanted to know if it was the same project, if it was Mount Dooley or if it was, okay.
Not doing it.
I was hoping.
Same.
Yeah, it said dirt and rock, but it's, okay, thank you. I think that, oh, and since you're, Tony, sorry, just, the sign, the airport sign, I
Yes.
like it personally. How did the airport commission react to it?
I think it was generally positive. I mean, to be fair, it was not what they had initially requested, and we had a quick conversation
Hey.
about it. But I think in the end, they understand, and then they understand that the quality of the sign in its current configuration will fail, and I had some backup help from Mrs. Fossar. So at the end of the day, we worked it within the code and the ordinance with the airport commission, and to replace the sign that we would expect to fail probably within the next 6 to 12 months. Depends. I mean, it's a
Anytime.
wild card. It's a wild card depending on the monsoon. So I think in the end, we kind of got some of the concerns out of the way, and they were generally pretty positive
Oh,
when we
that's
got
good.
completed.
Okay, thank you. That's really all.
Anybody else? Questions about the executive report?
I had a question on the Cove. Recently, it's been reported that the wave machine is broken, and it was fixed, and now we have some other issues. Do we have any report with respect to what's going on with that project?
Ms. Flassar and I were just talking about that earlier today, so I think Sharon has the most recent report.
The most recent update from facilities is they believe that the part that is malfunctioning is a relay. That is a very inexpensive part. However, since the wave machine is still under warranty, they do not want to touch it, because if they make a change and then it blows a more expensive component, that's more difficult to fix, they're responsible for that. So they are currently waiting on a response back from the wave machine builder, a company called WaveTech, confirming the issue and also allowing them to change out that failed component. As soon as they get that okay, then they should be able to bring the wave machine back online. I know there were some issues noted last week about some cracking. I've taken a look at those pictures. I don't believe that that is structural cracking. It looks like standard hairline cracks to me, as would be expected with concrete as it ages. We do have a message to Schneider Electric, and they'll be reaching out to their subcontractor just to confirm that what we're seeing is accurate and that no additional repairs are needed. But at this time, we don't believe that that would hold up the reopening of the waves at the Cove after this relay is fixed.
All right, thank you for the update.
Anybody else? Pam?
Mr. Boone, can you come back up? So I just want Mr. Boone on page 30 to talk a little bit about the comprehensive economic development strategy that we've been working on and kind of what that means to the city.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gray, and you were actually, from the elected official, the participant in the SEDS process, or the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. So we've been working that with SEGO, and that's been a several-month process.
SEGO is the southeastern
It's an
area.
Arizona governmental organization.
Now, we got a new member of the council, so we need to make sure
Okay.
we speak English.
And understand, too, SEGO's, well, it's a different English now, so.
Yeah.
So SEGO's region covers Cochise County, Graham, Greenlee, and Santa Cruz County. So understand when they come together, this comprehensive strategy covers all 4 counties. The baseline of this, and probably the most important element for my office, is when we go after an Economic Development Administration grant, or EDA, the first question they will ask is your project in the SEDS or in the strategy? And when we had the first discussions with the DIRT, aka Mount Dooley, that was the very first question. So the ultimate, there's a lot of eaches and details that go into this, but the bottom line is to ensure that the SEDS is there, it's approved, and it's published, which will now allow us to go after things like EDA grants. The general process, we took our projects, they had a voting segment that SEGO did across their membership and across the 4 counties. I appreciate the staff helping me flesh these objectives out. We actually bounced them over to Mayor Pro Tem, who submitted them to the greater whole of the SEGO evaluation process. Then they built a voting mechanism, and what you see is where they came out in the prioritization. Certain things went much higher. On a personal note, what I would say, the SEGO criteria was very focused on border trade, border warehousing, and those types of things. So to be fair, our efforts didn't necessarily meet the higher of the elements. And you can kind of see where the bottom 3 or so fell out at the tail end from a prioritization effort. From my conversations with the Arizona EDA rep, the number has never been in the equation, so it's at least it does not appear on the surface that a prioritization 40 versus a prioritization 20 will have any impact on future grant money. The other thing I guess I will offer from Sego's perspective is this is a living document, so we can continue to make changes as we go. But again, there was quite a bit of staff work bouncing this forward to try to frame out these 5 objectives, and again, trying to push them out, again, to give us the wedge to try to move things forward in the future. But we just wanted to cut and paste it so that you were aware of where the end of the process, where we ended up with our prioritization.
Yeah, I just wanted council to hear what it was.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a comment. I want to echo Chuck's words when he said, "The city's loss is CCOM's gain." Mike is going to be surely missed, but I think the entire Southeast Arizona is in good hands with him as the director. So just want to congratulate him and say how sorry we are to see him leave the city, though. But
Well, I think we're not concerned that Mike is going to go over there and do a good job, because he will.
right.
Our concern has got to be, and I've already expressed this to the management. He did a great job, especially on the street project, talking to individual businessmen, and he did a good job as the ombudsman. And that position is very difficult to fill to the level that Mike executed it. If we get a newer person in that's not familiar in the community, it's going to take some time for them to get up to speed so they can be at least half as effective as Mike was, since he was from this community, knew a lot of the business owners already, had already established trust and rapport with those folks. So we're going to have a challenge ahead, getting the right person to fill his position here for the city.
Agree.
Okay? Anybody else? You guys are being easy tonight. Okay. Next is report on trips and future trips, future meetings. I know I keep talking about everybody, the importance of getting to the League of Cities. And again, I haven't been able to talk to you yet, Councilman Rodriguez, but that's an important thing, especially for a first-time council person, to go up and see what's going on and how the cities work together cooperatively on a number of issues across the state. And it's up in Phoenix this time, so we need to talk about that. What else do we have for future meetings, Ms. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, for your July 8th meeting, right now, I have the court agreement and the magistrate contract tentatively planned.
Okay.
And wanted to remind everybody not to forget the Spotlight Breakfast on August 10th.
Okay, August 10th, Spotlight Breakfast. There's also, when is the breakfast with it's June, isn't the breakfast with the chamber? We're restarting we usually have a breakfast with the chamber. Tony, when is that?
Let's say 10 July.
10, yeah, that's what I was thinking, 10 July, and that's over at the college, and it's a breakfast. They normally give each governmental body that's represented gives a brief update as to what's going on in the city, the county, whatever, the post. And of course, the chamber has a program of some type related to business, usually.
It's not the 10th.
So,
The 13th.
13th of July, so.
At 8 o'clock.
At 8 o'clock at the Cochise College in the big room, with breakfast, so, you may get your RSVPs in with the chamber for that. Anything else? Recent trips, meetings, future meetings?
We have the SVMPO meeting this week. I didn't want to steal the chairperson's thunder
Oh,
there.
that's okay. Yeah, it's Thursday at 2:45.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then we go to item D, future discussion items with council. Again, I'll go to the assistant city manager. Have you got any items on the list there?
I don't at this time, Mayor.
And we will be doing later in August, we're gonna sit down and talk about, I'm going brain dead here, the
Development.
economic development, yeah.
Good.
Okay, so I think city manager committed to that, okay. The only other thing I have a question about is movies in the park have started again. And I didn't see anything executive report about the last one. I understand we had quite a crowd.
We had about 400 people.
Yeah.
And
And the next one is gonna be
this Saturday.
this Saturday, and it's, well, I was gonna say Xena, that's not the one. That's-
Wonder Woman,
Wonder Woman.
1984.
Okay, and the word on the street is there are gonna be a lot more people there.
Oh, yeah.
So, please get out and do those kind of things. And we'll talk about 4th of July, on Thursday a little bit. Anything else for discussion tonight? Questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Meeting's adjourned.